Hi, I'm Ollie and welcome to my channel. I am on a new camera which is quite exciting. It's doing lots of kind of focusy things which are a bit scary, but I'm a bit nervous because it keeps on changing focus, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, so today I am talking about The Hours by Michael Cunninghan. I actually watched this as a movie first years and years ago. I think when I was about 15, 16, I was obsessed with it at that stage. I mean, I re-watched it so many times. The rundown on The Hours is that Michael Cunninghan is looking at three main characters over the course of a single day. And it's done in a stream of consciousness, so you enter into the different lives of the three women and you get a sense of their lives and what their kind of day-to-day troubles are. So the first character is Virginia Woolf, and I think she's a really central character, as the story very much reflects another story that was written by Virginia Woolf called Mrs. Dalloway, and I think it's almost like a love letter to Mrs. Dalloway, in the sense that he clearly really respects her writing, the way it's structured. Virginia Woolf is struggling with the structure of her book, and she's going through the process of thinking about how she wants that character to be and what she's going to end up doing. It also links into her domestic life in terms of how she has a relationship with her staff, how she feels uncomfortable asking them to do things for her, so you get this sense of who she is as a woman. It also leans into the relationship that she actually has with her husband. What's interesting about the story, though, is it doesn't mention Rita Sackville at all. I've previously read the love letters between Rita Sackville and Virginia Woolf, and they are beautiful. It was the most kind of absorbing non-fiction piece of literature that I'd read, because it was literally their letters to each other. There's so much affection within those letters, but there's also lots of really stupid arguments that happen through them, and you really get a sense of who they were as women at that time. And for me, it's just a bit disappointing that he didn't include any of their relationship in The Hours, as he was reflecting on Virginia Woolf almost as a character study. So then it relates to two other characters, Mrs. Dalloway, or Clarissa, and Laura Brown, Mrs. Brown. And in each chapter it refers to them as Mrs. Dalloway and Mrs. Brown. And she's at home with her child, Richie, and she's also pregnant. So she goes on this kind of quest to create this cake, and she wants it to be absolutely perfect, and it has to be the best thing in the world, and it has to create the sense of joy. A place where I think she feels quite lost and doesn't want to even be there. She's kind of trapped in that role. I think it's in the 1940s, and she's looking for more in her life, basically, and I think she escapes through the book of Mrs. Dalloway, where she sees this confident, strong woman who also feels the sense of entrapment in her social structure that she's in, and it's about her breaking down and losing control a little bit, and ultimately trying to find a method of escape, either through suicide or leaving her son and husband. And then Mrs. Dalloway, who is Clarissa, she's present as a modern day character, and interesting, she is a reflection on Mrs. Dalloway in the writing of Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf as a modern day portrayal. And because I think with Mrs. Dalloway, she did have a kind of bisexual relationship, which is kind of hinted at in the reading of Mrs. Dalloway, a woman called Sally, and instead of not going with Sally, she ends up going off with another fella. Mrs. Dalloway, aka Clarissa, in the present, she actually does choose Sally, and she has a long-term relationship with her. They have a daughter together, but she does also have a kind of love triangle going on with someone called Richard, and there was a triangle between Richard and another character called Louis, or Lewis, I can't remember, right on the low. And that's kind of interesting in terms of that there's a three-way relationship going on there in terms of Louis or Lewis and Richard, but also in terms of her partner Sally and her daughter, as well as you've got Virginia Woolf, Clarissa and Mrs. Brown. So there's all these patterns of three happening through the book. It's what links the three characters together is Richard is Richie, who is Mrs. Brown's son. It kind of ties through the timeline of the three generations of the women in terms of the different things that they're facing. I think this kind of, for me, there was like a task which they're all trying to achieve throughout the day. So in terms of Mrs. Brown, she's creating a cake, and it's something that can be consumed and eaten. Whereas Mrs. Dalloway, she's going off to purchase flowers, and flowers are cut and diminish and die. And for Virginia Woolf, they come across a bird which is dead, and they provide it with a burial. So there's a lot of themes tied into it in terms of living and life and death. There's this kind of existential crisis which is fluttering subtly underneath in terms of them questioning their purpose, each of their timelines, and how they're adding value to the worlds in which they live. Each of them are struggling with having a positive outlook in terms of their lives, and ultimately it leads for Virginia Woolf committing suicide. It's also interesting how none of the characters have explicit labels in terms of their sexuality, because Mrs. Brown has a flirtation with another character called Kitty, where they kind of have a kiss, but then Kitty steals away, and it's a moment where they could have taken it further, but neither of them dare to. And likewise with Virginia Woolf, it's just not mentioned in terms of the relationship with Rita Sackville throughout the story. Richard is also bisexual in terms of his relationship with Clarissa and Louis. Lewis. I really need to remember who that is. Also, in terms of the importance of living, even if you are having these massive struggles, Virginia Woolf alludes to how she's going to kill off a character in order to make other people respect and value the living, and that's reflected in the fact that towards the end of the novel, spoiler, Richard commits suicide by leaping out of a window, even though he's about to win an award for his great piece of literature. Anyway, I really basically enjoyed The Hours. I thought it was a great, slight little read. It's something that you do just want to be able to take your time with. On the next video, going to be breaking down what the image meant to me. You are welcome to view that. I also would love to see if you have had your own responses to The Hours, and that if you want to create your own artwork, please join in. I have a Facebook page where I upload images from other people who have done their own fan art on different books. I also use the hashtag Bookdraw, which I use on Twitter and on Instagram. But please get involved. I'd love to see if there's any quotes that you love about the book. I'd love to see any images that you'd like to upload for yourselves. That would be amazing if you contribute and get involved in that way. Also, because this channel is really, really new, please click the like button, or even better, to subscribe, because that really helps me in terms of getting other people to be able to see this channel and see what I'm doing with this project. So I really need your help. So if you stuck to around to the end, that's amazing. Thank you very much, and hopefully I will see you again. Bye!
Subscribe!